Well, one thing I need to make abundantly clear from the get-go is there's no coercion involved in me giving this talk. I'm doing this on my own free will, all right? So we're gonna talk about childhood, what we all have in common. Let me start off by asking a question. How many of you have used any kind of mapping technology in the last 24 hours, like to get to Q, right? To get, as we transport around, maybe flights in, getting our rental car. I wanna talk about a map that I discovered this last year. So my wife and I were on vacation, and we came across this map from the 1500s. Maybe you've seen this. It was created by the Italians. I'm sure it was a very well-funded exploration and discovery. But I don't know if you've ever seen something, maybe a piece of art or a clip from a movie or a song, and you feel like it's speaking to you. So I see this map, and I'm like, it's speaking to me. There's something here. And so what I was thinking about is if we could bring these map makers back from the dead and bring them up here at Q, what would we say to them? I think we would say, thank you. Like, I'm sure this is a well-funded project, but with limited technology, limited mobility compared to what we have today, limited visibility, look at what you created. I think what we would not say is, y'all are a bunch of idiots. Look at how off you were. Like, no, we wouldn't do that, right? We would be filled with such gratitude. But here's the thing. If today's child educators were still using this map to educate our children, we'd be outraged. We would say, well, that's outdated information. We have more information now. That's gonna lead to long-term navigational consequences, right? And I think we're at a similar problem with child formation or children's ministry in our churches in the West. The children's ministries that we know of in our churches in the United States were built under a 1980s, 1990s set of assumptions in a quasi-Christian culture pre-2007 iPhone world. We just simply have more information now than we did then about mental health, about entertainment, about the lead factors that shape a child disciple. So at Q, we have the big blessing of discussing a wide variety of topics at the intersection of faith and culture as it relates to adulthood. But we want to move that down just a little bit for this talk right here into childhood. What exactly is forming our children? Perhaps one of the most epic stats that gets a lot of press time is this from the Barna Group, that 64% of those post-high school are leaving the church. We've all heard this. This is not a new topic, but I guess you could say that this is the church's canary in the coal mine. Now, you may be familiar with the canary in the coal mine. The canary in the coal mine is this idea that when our great-grandfathers would go do hard manual labor underground, they would take a canary in a cage, and if that canary was taking in the toxic gases, it would fall over dead as a sign that there's a problem. That poor canary, right? So, but that canary was a bit of a dashboard metric to say there's a problem. But the point of the canary in the coal mine is not the canary dying, it's what was leading to that canary's death. What process, what deadly gas was leading to that. And much like that deadly gas, in discovering what that is, there's another Barna stat that gets way too little attention, and it's this right here. A person's worldview is primarily shaped and is firmly in place by the time someone reaches the age of 13. Now let's think about this. We tend to think of age 18 as the deadline. We have to get these students ready to commission out into the culture, onto their college campuses. But the Barna work is helping us realize our deadline is not 18, the deadline's a little earlier than that. So who is today's 13-year-old? Today's 13-year-old just entered into the church's youth group. 2 years prior to that, they were 11, graduating out of your children's ministries. 3 years prior to that, they were 8. 8 years old is the heart of your church's children's ministry, and this is the good work where worldview is being formed. This is the process of getting today's kids ready to be a resilient disciple in our world. So that Barna stat, what does that Barna stat really mean? What it really means is we're up against a deadline, and it's earlier than we thought. The deadline is earlier than we thought. So in the past, as we've thought about these conversations at the intersection of faith and culture, we've thought that children were more removed from those in a pre-iPhone world, in a quasi-Christian culture. But in today's world, these very same topics are all-encompassing for all of us, even our children, and they're being formed at a very rapid age, and childhood is disappearing. So you've probably read the very good work, many works by Neil Postman, who says, if parents wish to preserve childhood for their own children, they must conceive of parenting as an act of rebellion against culture. Now, when I see that, my first thought are the last few words, which I find a little jarring. I get a little PTSD from the moralistic culture wars from the 1980s and 90s. But I think the main point of this sentence, of this quote, are those words, conceive of parenting. Neil Postman was saying we've got to think differently. We talked earlier about these idea of parallel structures. Neil Postman was saying parents have to become a parallel structure of forming and developing their children. Pastor Darren Whitehead, right here in the Nashville area, has said something similar. He said, we must begin with our children with the assumption that our children are being overly exposed with worldly discipleship and underexposed with biblical discipleship. That's the starting assumption. So, what's actually happening in our children's ministries? So our organization has conducted 8 research projects in the children's ministry space just within the last 9 years. And we just conducted our biggest one with the Barna Group. And you can get this available come June. This is gonna be market ready. But we just got the early findings back. And I'm gonna go over 2 super fast. The first one is this. Children's ministry leaders lack confidence in their impact. If you're in any way involved in the faith formation of your children and your students in your ministries, we heard this from you in the research. Let's talk about it. So there's a lot of data here, but what I want you to see is, let's read the top, but compared to churchgoers, ministry leaders are half as likely to feel that the church, its leaders and services for children are influential in a child's development. So look at the far left, the areas that both agreed, ministry leaders and churchgoers, they both agreed that parents and guardians and friends and social media were wildly influential. But look at the blue bars on the far right. This is church leaders saying about themselves, church, myself as a church leader and our services for children, we have no confidence that what we are doing with children is making an impact. But here's the thing. There's something church leaders are doing that is having massive impact. Here it is. Churches that invest in a highly relational community are more likely than their other churches to produce life or disciples going into student years. So 2 out of 5 or 4 out of 10 children in the United States are in a church where there's a highly relational community of loving, caring adults engaging in their lives. 6 out of 10 are not, 60% are not. This next slide is filled with way too much data, but what I want you to see are the differences of the green bars compared to the gray bars. Check this out. What you really need to notice here is it's not even close. It's not even close. So we're talking about Bible engagement, understands that Christ is my Savior, serves the community, serves the church. If your church wants to make lasting faith in children, the secret ingredient is people. It's not entertainment and Bible light strategy. It's loving, caring adults engaging with children. So if you're a lead pastor and you're cultivating community and adults who see children, you're probably much more likely shaping those children to be young disciples. So if we remain in the old map with a lot of emphasis on entertainment and what we call the Bible light strategy, we're probably going to continue to get the same results. But church leaders should be asking this question as we land the plane. What if we shifted our thinking from children's ministry, which can mean a lot of things, to child discipleship? Thank you for that applause. Andy Crouch said it best earlier. What can we invest in now that will produce fruit for generations to come? Child discipleship is this antidote to disappearing childhood. You invest in child discipleship, you're investing in the most future-forward, strategic part of the local church. Thank you for what you do. God bless.